Q&A with Kate.
Oh no.
I think Carter from my game group is really getting interested in games, and he said he mentioned that he was planning to be here tonight, so he might be here already.
Open up the. Give me a link. We'll see who's all on here.
Yeah, I will here in just a second. Why is that not? Okay, there it is. All right, there we go. There's that, and then here's your link. Good, sir. And we are broadcasting right now. So
yeah, there we are. We're on live on YouTube. I see us. Yay! We're on YouTube. Dab it, Kate.
I think members of my family may be joining as well, but they'll just be chatting. Unfortunately, they are several hours away across Iowa. My whole family, the rest of my family's together though. My brother is down. He ended up with a work thing that was like right next to my parents' hometown, to my hometown as well. And so he's staying at home. And I think he, my mom, and my dad, we're all thinking about at least chumming around for a little bit during this recording.
Oh, cool. That's nice.
So we might.
My family participates. They don't watch.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yes,
I just throw up completely under the bus. Hey, I gotta go talk about stuff. Come on, let's go.
That's right, TC. You win. Okay, great.
No, I don't win it much.
What else do I fail at?
I don't know what else you'll fail at. Calling you a gentleman?
Yes.
There you go. That's what I'm really good at. I love assuming gender, and I especially more so than assuming gender is misidentifying individuals. That's my favorite thing.
We might get a double whammy when Kate comes over, when Carissa comes over here to join us.
Oh no! I hope I would not make that mistake. There's not,
Oh, I'm waiting for that mistake, man. I'm waiting.
All right, dude.
Okay, so we got it open.
Yeah, brah.
Yeah, brah.
Bruh.
Bruh.
Oh.
Hey, I saw Jumanji.
Oh, let's talk about Jumanji. Let's talk about some movies for a bit.
I saw Jumanji.
What's Jumanji?
Jumanji. Oh, have you never seen the original Jumanji?
No.
TC, you watch all kinds
fail.
of these oldie movies, and you've never watched Jumanji with your family. That's one that's like
Star Wars too. Don't worry.
Well, Jumanji is like it came out in the mid-90s, and I can remember watching that on VHS, like just almost on repeat. I remember one time I had like I went to a sleepover, and I think we watched it more than 2 times. I think we were on our 3rd time when everybody passed out. This is all in one night. This is when I was like 9. So
Wow.
it was glorious. But it's about this board game that essentially becomes like real life. It's a roll and move. Huzzah! Surprise! Yeah. R.I.P. Flip the table. But it's a roll and move, and like I can just remember that's in the jungle you must wait until the dice read 5 or 8 is what this little boy, like 11-year-old boy, rolls, and then he gets sucked into the game. And then 30 years later, of course, 30 years later, somebody else finds the game in the attic of the house, and then Robin Williams. Apparently, Robin Williams is a man that looks good enough to have come from the jungle, from 31 years or 30 years in the jungle. By the way, here's Froley right here. Looks like he's wearing the jungle. Here's my family. Yeah, he's came up to join. Froley is just all sorts of energy. He's getting groomed tomorrow. That's why he's a mess right now. Yeah, you're just.
It looks like a Muppet. It's awesome.
Yeah, he is. He really is. He actually is like a living teddy bear, and he goes for the face. He goes for the face. He leads with the tongue. He goes for the face.
Sounds like a dog we know.
And I'm trying to get him to stop going for the orifices. It's okay if you do the forehead, but man, the nostril, that feels weird. And the ear hole, that feels wrong. That feels like gonna get an ear infection.
And we have Hornet Nest is on. Who's that?
There he is. It's Froley. He's joining us. Because I need my family. I need my family because TC's got his family. Hey, Carter. So Carter is Kate. By the way, happy birthday. You are now 14, and I think Carter, you're 14 or 15. Is that right? Is it? I forget. I think that you turned 15, right? Or am I confusing you with the other Carlos in that class? Carter's also, he's my student, and he's in my game group at the school.
Oh wait,
yeah, he did turn 15. I remember. I thought I remembered that. So he's a year older than you, Kate, but he's also kind of like just starting off in the hobby, and I think that he got really interested by the escape room games like Unlock, and has got hooked so far since then. So maybe this Carter will be able to help you get an idea of what some of those heavier games are out there, and give me an idea of what you want to request to play at our high school game group, which we just met earlier. And have you guys ever played Bang the Dice game?
Yes, we played Bang the Dice game. Yes.
Which one was that?
Where you roll the dice and there's like bullets and you're like trying to figure out who the sheriff is and who the bandits are and the deputy.
I think I don't remember playing that one, but
oh, she's
probably
played it.
Did.
Did you ever sing "I Shot the Sheriff" during a board game? Or did TC ever do that? Because I'm assuming it was your dad, because that's every dad has to make that joke playing that game. And in the absence of a dad, I make dad jokes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I get lots of practice in my classes, don't I, Carter? So,
well, hopefully this will be good for Carter, because Kate's going to be talking about some games she wants to play but is afraid to do it because they look really long.
Yeah, long is my weakness.
Yeah. Kate likes games, but she has a very short attention span. If she can't do things very quickly, she's like, she flies off into Neverville. So we're going to be discussing at least 4 of them, and we've got to convince Kate whether to try it.
Try it or just scrap it.
Yeah, try it or scrap it. Maybe Carter can get some input with that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited for that. I think this is a really cool angle to take. I am very much excited. I think this is really awesome that you've come up with an idea of these games that you're interested in, and you want to hear from people that have experience with them. So I'm looking forward to it. I have experience with at least game systems of everything on this list, but TC, you know that you're going to be taking one of them.
Yeah, and Chris is going to help me with one of them as well if she's sticking around.
Yeah.
And at one point, we all were looking at these heavy games going, I have no idea where to start. All of these look kind of interesting, but oh my gosh, these look terrifying.
Yeah. I've been there myself, man. I mean, and for me, it was just, a window into my mind is that for me, it was so much of it based on, I guess critics' ratings. I've always been somebody who I feel like the job of a critic is to filter down. Essentially, their job is to filter down to the ones that are worth your worth your time, worth your investment, worth your attention. And so I'll look at, I guess in the board gaming hobby, the only thing there really is the Board Game Geek Top 100. And so I would say almost like for me, the Board Game Geek Top 100 just kind of turned into my bucket list. And if a game was heavy on there, I would try it. And the thing was, dude, I ended up in situations, and I mean the collective, dude. By the way, there I'm using it. I think maybe
I'm cool, dude. I'm cool, dude.
Hey, Carissa's there too. I just saw Carissa.
Hey,
I'm here.
Welcome, Carissa. And I'm happy that you're going to be here talking about one of your favorite games that you're in the rule book for.
Not sure what I haven't actually seen the list.
That's going to be a surprise for you, Carissa. Even though the list I shared it with, they bailed. So I guess they didn't like the games on there. I'm not sure exactly where that list affected these other people.
Oh, no, it definitely was. It scared them away for sure.
Yeah, scared them away.
For Andy, I know, like for him, it was some sort of a familial crisis, which, as I told TC, is kind of something I've grown to expect. Just don't take it personally. He wants to be here, he just can't. And with Trent, it sounded like something, like it sounded like he was kind of a question mark to start with. So whatever his commitments were, I think what's happening is we're running here into kind of like people leaving for their holiday trips, and I think that's kind of where they were. But for me, we're kind of taking a post-Christmas vacation, a quote-unquote vacation. We're like traveling across the state of Iowa.
Our vacation is stay here. We have a staycation.
That's nice. Getting to relax. I mean, that's really nice. But we do tend to go to a place that's in southwestern Wisconsin, which actually I think we got a couple of podcast listeners. I'm pretty sure Jerry, who joins us sometime, is from there. So maybe sometime I'll be in the area and hit him up. But when we get there, usually it snows so much that we can't do anything, which has kind of been a nice thing, you know. Because if you can do stuff, there's always like, you know, somebody kicking the butt, like, let's go do something. And it's like, that's not why we're here. We're here not to do things.
Okay, well, we got everybody. You want to give this a start? And maybe if you have to leave for 10 minutes, we can carry the Dragonholt conversation going.
Yeah. You guys will cover my back here. And I appreciate that. So, because that could be any minute here. 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome to The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm the host of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly, Joe Salon, and tonight we got an extra special panel consisting of 3 members of the same family, the Reid family. That would be Carissa, Kate, and TC. How are you all doing tonight?
I'm doing good.
Yeah, yes, that's right. Collective responsibility. Everybody's responsibility is no responsibilities. All right, Carissa, how are you doing? It's good to have you back on, Carissa. This is not your first time on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. Well, it's none of your first time, but it's great to have you back, Carissa. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm de-stressing from Christmas shopping.
Oh my goodness, that is just a circus, isn't it?
Yeah, I lucked out and I made it out before rush hour traffic. So there were actual parking spots at the mall.
Whoa!
What?
Impressed.
I was going to say,
not many.
I had a hard time parking there to see a movie last night. Yeah.
Waited too long, but that's okay. It's getting done.
I got all those like emails last weekend from my family, from my people that had questions about game types that they kind of have never played before, like the unlock games and whatnot. And they were all like coming in over this last week, you know, this last minute, like, Yeah,
I used to temp at our favorite local game shop a few years ago.
Yeah, Cloud Cap, yeah.
2 or 3 Christmases I temped over the holidays, and I miss it because I was on top of what was out and what was hot and being able to talk to customers about games. It's like one of the best retail experiences. So I feel really out of the loop.
Yeah. Being in games retail would actually be, I think, kind of enjoyable. I feel like, you know, like just getting to talk about games is kind of fun.
Yeah.
He said, maybe like to the ether, right? As everybody's listening.
You found
never know.
Yes. Oh man, we found Dutch Blitz, and we were just playing back-to-back games of it between customers.
Oh, you mean Speed? It's like 4-stack Speed. That game, yeah. It's. I feel like it's one that it's nice to have a game like that. I feel like there's that player at the table that doesn't tend to excel at other board games, but just destroys everybody at Dutch Blitz.
TC has won like several of our past several games. We're how are you doing
that? Like identifying things under a microscope tends to get him really quick at being able to see that, because that is not my skill. That is for sure.
And that was the year that you showed that to the James, the store owner, and he just like flipped out. Like, he hated it. He never wanted to see it again. It was so funny.
Yeah, that's definitely one that rubs some people the wrong way. Well, it's great to have you back on, Carissa. And let's talk now to you, Kate. I think that you've been out of school for a little while now, right? Over there in Portland, they don't even make you go to school anymore, do they? It's just like, go to school when you want to. Be free. Put a bird on it, too.
Yeah.
I've
been out for a while. It's nice just wasting my life on the computer.
Yeah.
Yes, you are of the generation that I teach. Yep. We're like a 1-to-1 school, so everybody has Chromebooks at the school where I teach high school Spanish. And one of my students is actually joining us in the live chat. Welcome, Carter, as well. He comes to my game group and has started getting infected with the board game bug. And anyway, yeah, when it's not time to be doing anything else, I think that those Chromebooks tend to be just a magnet for any way to waste time. So
Yep.
That's normal behavior, I think. I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Confirm that.
TC, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Just getting the next few days off work, and I'll spend some time with the family, getting ready for the holidays.
We still need to decorate the tree, guys.
Yeah, I know.
It's pretty.
Oh,
We got
there
lights
it is.
on. Apparently, I need to decorate the tree in what the 5 days it's going to be. Okay, awesome.
Yes.
It's gonna turn into New Year's tree.
That's fine.
Yeah, well, you might want to get around to that. You only got a few days left.
I just want to say, with the Christmas tree we have, we can't put in my Star Trek ornaments because they won't fit into the light bulbs.
No, they won't.
Oh, you got those ones that light up. My dad actually had one of those Star Trek ones. I think when you press the button on it, it might have made some Enterprise sounds too.
Yeah. If we could ever get all of them out, our tree would just be like a space battle.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we just got done recording. Me and TC just got done recording for the long view of 2016. And you might notice it's 2017. So we like to take a look at those, the year in review after we've had enough time to play those games. So if you want to check that out, check out the Longview podcast. Me and TC just recorded that on Tuesday night. So not too long ago, as of this recording on Thursday night. So very good time there recording with you, TC.
To listen, Joe's disappointment of the year was my #1 game of that year. So be sure to check that episode out. It was okay. Yeah, just go check it out. This is gonna, yeah, we're gonna get off track here. But anyway, what is the track that we're gonna be on tonight? Well, Kate was awesome enough to come on and she wants to talk about games that she is interested in, but she is kind of intimidated by. We're talking about heavy games that Kate has taken a look at, seen some interest, but wants to know whether or not she should really give them a try. And I'm happy to help out with that. And she's also got her lovely mother and father that are kind of experts in their own right. And she's really chosen just a swath of games that I would say represents many different parts of the hobby, even though it's only 4 deep. And I think that we'll have a great time talking about that during our topic. So thanks for doing that. Thanks for putting in that research there. I know it's almost like doing a little homework here, Kate, but you don't have any school right now to worry about. So I don't feel bad for you. It's just so and we got a couple maybe more to add to talk about here from Carter, who's also kind of in that entering a heavy part of the hobby. So oh yeah, we could talk about those.
Sharing that. Yeah, Spirit Island Mix versus Minions. We can add those in as well. I think those are 2 really good ones to maybe mention. So, or to definitely mention. Before we move on, Game Surplus. Hey, look what I got here. I guess I'm mirrored, so I need to make sure that I'm centered. Game Surplus. I got my we call this my bling. I don't know. I'm pretty sure what is my merch. This is my merch.
Your swag.
My merch. This is actually I just put in an order at Game Surplus, sponsor of the Good, the Bored, the Ugly, the Longview, and everything else that I put out media-wise. I put in an order for Rajas of the Ganges, which I've never played, so that's not on the podcast picks. But Gaia Project I had played, but I did not own because I'd only played Trent's copy. Well, because we have a special setup with Game Surplus, if you look at their podcast picks, which I just added a bunch of games to, including the unlocked games, some of Carter's favorites, you'll be able to get 10% off of their already discounted prices with their low $90 shipping threshold. If you type in as a coupon in the coupon code section before you check out, Good, Bored, Ugly Picks. That's all one word. Doesn't matter what case you put it in. You can put it in all caps and shout it into your computer. Yes, I want my 10% off. So I use that deal myself. I spent my own hard-earned money that I get from teaching high school to buy Gaia Project, a game that I am really excited to own. I know it's awesome because I've already played it. And Rajas of the Ganges is one that I am excited to try, and I think that Trent liked as well. So check out the Good, Bored, Ugly picks there. And now I'm turning over this episode to you, the family, Reid, to talk about Legacy of Dragonholt. What an interesting and unique title coming out from Fantasy Flight, and it's yours to talk about.
Right. So Legacy of Dragonholt, designed by Nikki Valens from Fantasy Flight Games. This was announced, I think, at Gen Con this year, or maybe before. And it kind of came out of nowhere. It looked like a combination of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective and Dungeons and Dragons.
And what it advertises it as is a cooperative narrative adventure for 1 to 6 players. Now it's $60, so we were kind of hesitant. I was kind of hesitant to just fork that over to something we weren't sure about. But fortunately, at the aforementioned store that Carissa worked at, they have game rentals, so I was able to get a hold of my copy. And what we're going to do is we're going to discuss our initial impressions of it. Now, we do have some interest in actually finishing it, but I think it's important that we get some impressions out because it kind of was we thought it was, kind of wasn't, but I thought it was pretty interesting. So when we headed out, who wants to discuss this first? Okay, Kate.
Well, no,
the beautiful, not it, nose goes.
So let's just
Kate had the most awesome character.
Okay, so to start with this game, you create a character. It's very simplistic, and basically you choose you have
your skills.
Yeah, skills. You get 5. You can have up to 8, but for everyone after your 5th one, you take 2 loss on your stamina, your total stamina. So the more,
unlike D&D, it's not skills where you have skill points to it. It's just the skill.
Yeah, it's agility.
That's all you need.
And there's no dice in this game. None.
Sadly.
So
hold on. Tell me more.
I've still got this. I have not been able to open this dice bag for years.
You miss dice.
I love dice.
Oh.
Love dice. So yeah, it's kind of bummed when he said, "Oh, it's gonna be like D&D." I was like, "Yeah, I get my D20 out." No.
But part of your character creation is you create your backstory for your character, and I just kind of threw it down. I just did myself. I didn't write much, but these two went to town, and so we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves as our characters in the game. We have.
Oh, what was my name?
See how memorable this game was? You were a knight.
Oh, it was a knight.
You're a knight.
Yeah, Elsbeth Dare, I think it was.
And she wrote a whole backstory, filled everything up. Kate, you were a human knight. Kate, you were.
I was a cat person.
Yeah, cat folk.
Cat folk.
Describe your character a little bit.
Okay. Well, my character, he was
a brawler.
He was a brawler. He liked attacking things and even got into a fight in a bar once.
Oh yeah, let's just feel this in. This is Kate's first Dungeons and Dragons style game to play, and of course she goes to a tavern. Her character's what was it? Said drinks alcohol, smokes cigarettes, has this bloody armor and this necklace of teeth. No. And she goes into the tavern and and one of the choices was start a fight, which she does. So she goes up to one of the guy patrons and spills ale on him, makes the guy cry. And then this gnome comes out of nowhere. It's like the Arnold Schwarzenegger of gnomes. Starts beating the crap out of all of us. These two have got skills to soak the damage. If you got brawling and what was it? There's another skill. Dueling or something. You don't have to take all this damage. But I was a gnome. I just had alchemy and agility. And I had 8 stamina. By the time I got out of that fight, I was down to 3.
You were down to 1.
I just took, I was like throwing all around the place. Right. So there's
fighting somebody else's fight, huh?
Yeah. So yeah. So
hey, you guys
first impressions.
Yeah, first impressions. Okay. This is a choose your own adventure game. Plain and simple. I mean, we're talking about things that happen literally we just read out of the book. You basically start with the number, you read the text, and you have choices. And the way the choices are made between the players, if there's more than one, you just have a token and you flip it when you make a choice, and you can't make another choice till the other players make a choice. Now, that being said, you just make a choice and you read, and sometimes you can make a choice we can make these more choices, but you have these skills. If you don't, you can't. So there's really not that much of a game here, unfortunately.
Yet. We only did 2 adventures.
Yeah. But
not even 2.
Yeah.
We did the intro.
Yeah. I will say this for the game. Going in, Fantasy Flight is not known for its strong writing skills in games, right? I mean, you can just look at the back of the descriptions, the races, the Twilight Imperium, and or even read the short stories that come with the Legend of the 5 Rings. They're not the best written things. This, however, was really well written. It had memorable characters. We had Braxton, the Orc Knight.
And your love.
And my love, Miriam, the little girl gnome that my gnome was infatuated with, because I just wanted to do every choice I could with Miriam. And these guys were like, oh, we're going to do this now, right?
No, she was meditating in the background.
Yeah, you also made us like repair a road.
Yeah, but you made us stay and help Miriam with her. Well, that's
hey, I did the coolest thing. I got us all in a fight.
So the first two, and there's a lot here. I mean, we did the it looks like there's at least 8 or 10 adventures to go on, because that big book with the village had like 5 days in it. So first impressions, it's not Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective.
Oh my God, no.
But it's really, you're only going to bring as much into this, you're only going to be invested in this game as much as you want to bring into it. I mean, if you're invested in your character, you create it, you get a good backstory, and you actually kind of react to the story being told, I think you can get a lot out of it. We all want to keep playing it. We think there's a lot there, because there's this mystery. You get this letter, and you read this, and it's like, there's something with this letter we can't figure out. Like, there's misspellings in it. On the back, it says, see the first letter. There's this mystery here. We're like, oh, this is cool, but I don't think we've gotten to it yet. We just did the little introductory stuff, but I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'd like to play another one, because we did the introduction and then we went into the opening. It's not even an adventure. It's more of you're going around town and checking places out. You're basically trying to throw a dart to find the adventure. And that was bothersome. It was interesting going to these places, but literally we went to one place, and because of the time of day, it was closed. That's what the entry said.
Wow.
And so it feels like a bit of a waste of time, because you don't know where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do. So the whole first day, that's what it was. And it's hard to tell if it's because we missed going to a certain spot we needed to find it, but there's not really any guidance for that. So while it was interesting, it just felt like we were sitting around reading a story to one another, which is fine. It was fun and interesting because of that, but it wasn't what I was expecting of a game, especially when TC was selling it as Sherlock Holmes meets Dungeons and Dragons. I'm like, take the Sherlock.
That's a big promise right there.
Yeah. So I want to play a couple more scenarios to see if it turns into something more. But at this point, it's not one I would recommend purchasing for us. I think part of it too is the replayability on it is pretty limited.
Because like once you know the story, it's just the story.
Oh yeah. You can go through and pick different changes, but you still what you're doing. And
does the character you choose impact the outcome of the tale in a way where you'd like want to play it again as a different character, or is it just like the story itself is so static that it doesn't matter who you pick?
It might, depending on the skills.
It's pretty much just the skills. You can play a human or an orc, and if your skills are comparable, then it doesn't really matter what your race is at this point. So we haven't run into any like social biases or prejudices built into the game that would make it impactful based on what race you are.
Gotcha. Interesting. So, Kate, would you like to play this one again?
I would, but I would rather just like throw out an actual role-playing game where someone controls everything. But, me being the controller. But this is still fun. I'd probably want to play it again, playing my bloodthirsty cat murderer. But
and also, I have to say, this is set in the Runebound universe, and I had low expectations when it came to like characters and theme and setting and stuff, because I played Runebound and Descent that was all based in it. And like I said, I was really surprised about the characters that you met. They were engaging. you were vested in them.
It was very well written.
Braxton was good.
Yeah, Braxton. Yeah, and we talk about the characters in it, like, oh, where's the story going to go? What's going to happen here? I'm curious if we're going to meet that Arnold Schwarzenegger gnome again.
Good Norman.
Good Norman. Yeah, good Norman.
Oh.
So I mean, there's enough in here that makes me want to play it more. But I just wanted to do an impression and tell people that are listening that I know it's hard to call it a game. It's like an interactive. I don't know.
It's like a big role play.
It's a choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
It's literally a choose your own adventure with a character creation.
Yeah. But sitting around as a family and reading
that's
fun. It's a good family activity, and I like it. And it got Kate to want to play a Dungeons and Dragons role playing game. So hey, that's it. That's our first impressions of Legacy of Dragonholt. Any questions?
The choose your own adventure aspect is something that, like, to me, I feel like a lot of experiences I've had with choose your own adventure have been, I guess, subpar. I associate it with like these Goosebump books. But a buddy of mine, the Goosebump books that came out, and I remember reading them, and just the stories were not exactly engaging. But a buddy of mine had a really positive experience with these choose your own adventure books, and actually wanted to write one of his own. A Spanish teacher buddy of mine who wrote one for use in Spanish classrooms. It's like simple level 1. And what I found with his, because I thought it was magnificent, I thought that every choice you made seemed to result in some sort of unforeseen consequences or something. Like equal parts silliness and awesome.
Yeah.
And but here was how I found myself. Like every time that something would happen, or every time that I would have to make a choice, I would like read a page or two into the choice that I made, and then I would like go back and then read into the choice I didn't take, because it's like, for me, the choose your own adventure, like I want to read it all. Like usually if I enjoy a book, I want to see every different possible narrative path. Like it's kind of like I've been playing this game, The Witcher, recently, and The Witcher tends to have some pretty big branching paths. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, it's amazing. And it's just, man, that game, I've probably spent, that game has about 100+ hours of gameplay in it. And am I going to go back and play the whole thing over just to see, the extra few hours of storylines that I didn't take? So I suppose, is the writing really that good? Is it so good that you would think that I would sit there, read a passage, and then just be like, all right, let's read it all. Let's see what do we not choose? Okay.
I think so. There were some choices that started to feel repetitive, like, ask the orc about how she became a knight, or ask so-and-so about this. And it felt like those choices kept coming up, but then the information you got was a little different, or you got a little bit more depth. And that's the only part I think that felt like consulting detective is, you have to go to this number and read the entry. And it's one of those that if you go back and change your entry, it's going to change the outcome of the story, because it has a grid where it'll say, after you read the entry, check A1. And then you might get to another entry that says, if A1 or B5 are checked, go here. If they're not, go here. And so this story is adapting to your choices.
Yeah, you have impacts and ripples, sort of.
Yes. And so that's unique, and I'm curious to see where that leads.
Cool. And another thing that this is the first game that uses what they're calling the Oracle system. And the designer, Nikki Valens, I looked her up because I've never heard of her before. She was involved with a lot of the Mansions of Madness stuff and the Eldritch Horror, which seems to imply that maybe down the road she may do this type of game in the Arkham Horror universe, which might be something you're interested in, because if the writing for this crappy little Runebound is this good, I'm thinking if she takes on H.P. Lovecraft, might be something you would be very, very interested in, and might be really, really good.
For sure, dude. Yeah, I really do love H.P. Lovecraft. So generally, it's provided that it's like, I thought Mythos Tales was really good. So I have a really high bar though, and that's, I don't know if it's fair. I honestly don't know if the bar that I have for H.P. Lovecraft style writing is even fair. So I guess we'll figure out in the future if that if I get hold of that one. So when it comes out.
But yeah, I'd be curious to hear what you think of this Dragonholt game. Like I said, the writing's pretty good, and we're vested to at least play it some more. So we'll give another session report in the near future.
I heard that Carmen, the owner of Game Surplus, and Jeff Gamble, the Longview, got together and played this, and apparently Elaine, who's also a co-owner of the Game Surplus, Carmen's wife, hated it, and Jeff and Carmen stayed in character all night, is what I heard. That they just kept their conversation in character even after the game was over.
Yeah, I'd be curious to hear what they think. I really think your investment in the game is what you're going to bring into it. And if you just like play it like whatever, it's just a little choose your own, there's not much to do here, then you're not going to get a lot out of it. And I can see that. But I think there's something here to explore. You know?
Cool. All right. Well, that was Legacy. No, it's Legacy, right? I feel like I said it wrong at first, right? Did I say Legend first?
I think it's Legacy of Dragonholt.
Legacy of Dragonholt. Whatever I said earlier, it's Legacy of Dragonholt. So that's review number 1. Now on to my review, which is Key to the City London, a new game. Not a new game. It's been out for like, I want to say about a year now. But it's one that I initially kind of passed up because I felt like I was all in all not that big of a, I don't know. I felt like I was kind of over Keyflower. But then when I gave it some time, and I looked at what it was really looking to change about Keyflower, I thought, man, this is heading directly where I would want to take Keyflower, because there's a reason that I kind of, I guess, tired of it a little bit, and that's that there wasn't enough predictability in the tiles that come out in the game of Keyflower, which, by the way, is an auction. It's a simultaneous auction worker placement game where you're going to be building a board and using these meeples to activate the board. There's 3 different colors of meeples, and once you activate it in a certain color, you're just locked to that. So definitely results in some very interesting, like, you know, I can lock a tile to be bidding only in blue, because that's what I have a lot of, you know. So, you know, it's definitely a unique auction, as well as, you know, mixing that with worker placement just makes it so cool. But my issue with it was that the randomness in the game kind of betrayed a bit of the depth. You can end up with all these different tiles that produce things coming out in the beginning of the game, and then there's no reward for those at the end of the game. Especially since at the end game tiles, which are only a part of the scoring, a lot of the scoring can come from these other tiles that you have no real control over what's going to be there, and you have no real way of knowing what's coming. But the end game tiles, if a tile that would have helped you score is dealt to an opponent, that just won't get scored. So to me, it definitely had some issues. And I felt like, you know, some of these choices that in your first game or two seemed interesting, after 10, 12 games, which is where I'm at with it, started to sort of like feel like, well, I just can't predict what's going to happen. This first round feels a bit pointless, a bit like just going through motions to wait until I get to actually make interesting decisions. Well, Key to the City London changes a few things about the system. First of all, it's all in all a simplified version of the game that takes place in modern day London, as opposed to kind of like the Pilgrims on the Mayflower. So the sort of cutesy, cartoony art style is abandoned for something that looks almost like it would appear in a architecture textbook that's telling you all about London. And not being super familiar with London, I was engrossed in, you know, what these different places were. But it's not a very thematic game, so don't come at it for that. You know, if you're coming at it for this, you've got to be coming at it for the mechanisms here. It simplifies the system of Keyflower by totally removing resources and point-to-point movement. Instead, as soon as you get a resource, they're all going to be these connectors, and you have to immediately place it down on a hex on your player mat. At the start of the game, you start with only 1 hex. And I guess you don't have a player mat, just in a hex in your own like burrow, I think they call it. But at the start of the game, you only have 1 tile. And so whenever you place a connector, you have to place that connector so that it's like hanging off the tile. And that's okay. It's just you cannot move it anymore. If you attach something to it, it's just going to be connected by that. Well, the game system plays with this by having several different tiles come out that can maybe give you points for every tile that's connected to that tile by a specific color of connector. It could also give you points for every type of connector attached to that tile. So it definitely rewards you for placing these tiles. But what's interesting about the connectors is that it's not just that one tile that's being affected, it's both tiles, and how you place it, you know, like every single connector is going to be connecting potentially 2 tiles. And that to me created an interesting yet much simpler, cleaner decision than like where you put resources and what you eventually went and upgraded. So you're no longer having to like take actions to move your resources around to upgrade tiles. Now you just, and you don't even have like a special action for upgrading. You can just upgrade a tile by going to that tile. So it definitely, it's more difficult now because it creates a use of that tile. But what's kind of nice is when you do that, since you're going to that tile, you can kind of choose the color of meeple that can be bid on that tile. So you at least have a little bit of sway over, if I put a yellow meeple down and I have lots of yellow meeples in my supply, I can go there. Because you've got these 3 different colors of meeples, and you draw them randomly at the start of the game, and you kind of continue to draw them randomly between rounds, but you're drawing less and less meeples as the game goes on, because most of those meeples are going to be left on your tiles from like previous activations. So it distills a lot of those core elements I liked about Keyflower. But a lot of the spinning, like the wheels that just kept on spinning in Keyflower, even though they were going in no direction, are taken out. For example, one of the tiles in Keyflower, you just went there with a meeple to get more meeples. That's it. It just made, what did that actually do? In practice, it just makes the round go on longer. It takes out these elements that just drug on the game of Keyflower and made it something I wasn't that interested in. And now it's something that like every decision feels clean, feels quick. The game can move faster. Now you no longer shuffle all the tiles. There's 6 tiles that are level 1 tiles, 6 tiles that are like phase 2 or phase 1, level 1, whatever. First round tiles, 6 of them are always in the game. Round 2 tiles, 6 of them are always in the game. Those are your production. Your production's always going to be there. You can count on that. The tiles that you can't necessarily count on are all shuffled together in one big stack. And so now it's not like, oh, this is going to come out and fall, and I know it's coming out and fall, and if it doesn't come out and fall, I'm screwed. No, you're going to see most of the tiles in this game if you're playing at the higher player counts, and it gives a bit more predictability, which I enjoyed that as well. The end game scoring tiles take out, I think that they could have done maybe a little bit more interesting things with them, because it's just 12 tiles, and they're all so simple. It's like one scores you for your yellow meeples. The other one scores you for your blue meeples. The other one scores you for your, you guessed it, red meeples. And then blowing everybody's mind, there's a tile that scores you for every set of 1 red, 1 yellow, and 1 blue.
Oh, such diversity.
Exactly. You never would expect that much depth in this game design. But you know what? It might not be as robust seeming as Keyflower was, but so much of the robust design in Keyflower was inside this system where it just caused the system to buckle, because you didn't know what was going to be out. So it was like, okay, great. You've been collecting these you've been collecting these skill tiles throughout the entire game, and now the tile that you need to score this big old payload in the last round isn't coming out. Guess why? Because I'm the one who got dealt at the beginning of the game, and I hate you. So it let players choose a lot of what the last round looked like, but honestly, man, you could end up with a last round that only had 1 or 2 tiles in it. If you're playing it 2 players, well, I think you had to play at least 2 if you're playing 2 players, but you could end up with a tile with the last round where you only played like 2 tiles. There's only a few tiles out to bid for, whereas in this one, you know which tiles are going to be in it from the beginning of the game. If you play with 6 players, you actually play with all of the tiles, so there's no randomness when it comes to that. Like I said, I feel like there could have been a few more tiles there, but everything in this, also the way that you get, the way that you bid for player order and meeples for next round to me is cleaned up in a nice way that I liked. Instead of you bidding like at an auction for the ability to pick a boat first, second, or third, which these boats are how new meeples come in. Now it's like when you pass for good, which there actually is in this game, which is nice and clean, because if you pass for good, you're out of the round, and no longer they have to wait for you to pass every time it comes back around. In previous Keyflower, it'd be like, I take 1 action. What do you want to do? Oh, I still pass. I'm done. And then you just have to keep asking that dude who's told you he's done. Are you sure you're done? Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. Now you can actually just set sail, and that means you're done. And if somebody does something, you're like, oh, crap, I want to do it. No, you set sail. You're done. I like that. I like that you are incentivized to set sail quicker because there are more meeples if you get to choose your spot. You get to choose, a spot that lets you go first next round, lets you take a scoring tile. I like these decisions. I like the way that it's cleaned up, but it still conserves, like like the fact that I'm fighting in some way or another over what my next round's income is going to look like, and it's based on when I pass now, more so than how much I bid on a tile that tells me I get to pick first, second, or third. So it's just all these different elements have been changed in a way that to me seems like a positive change, seems like a change that I can totally get behind. And now I have reason to go back to the Keyflower system that I had grown tired of. And I know a lot of people love Keyflower, and I'm probably massacring a sacred cow for a lot of people. And if that's the case, I hope you continue enjoying Keyflower. But if you ever find yourself complaining about any of the things I mentioned, Key to the City London is the way to go. It keeps the game relevant. And you know, it's about a city that I know very little about, and I'm happy to have visited it in this nice little architecture textbook of Key to the City London.
What do you think, Kate?
A bit to unpack there, huh?
Complicated?
Well, I've actually played this one a few times. I rather enjoyed it, but I have no way to compare it to any other. That was like my one and only Keyflower type game. So it was good. You definitely played it more than I have and can talk about it more at length than I can.
Cool stuff. Well, yeah, I think that Keyflower is a really cool game system, and it took it in a direction I enjoyed. So yeah.
Cool. We have to
yeah.
Play some more. I do want to try Keyflower at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I would recommend, you know, if I was gonna say like a starting point, I really don't. I mean, if you like the auctions more, then go for Keyflower because there's more auctions. You know, Key to the City London takes away some of the auctions and cleans up what I think, you know, kind of sweeps a lot of Keyflower into a dustpan and replaces it in a nice way. So I enjoy that. But I don't even know if I tell you where to start. And honestly, Kate, this is one of those where, like, I feel if you were to be looking to crack into heavy games without hearing any of what I'm going to ask you here now, I'd be like, you know, maybe you try Keyflower because there's a lot of games that are sort of transitional between what I would consider like a heavy game and like, you know, a lighter, more gateway game. You know, and there's different types of heavy out there. There's heavy in complexity and there's heavy in depth of decision. So I mean, you know, do you want a game that just has rules for everything so you can sort of like feel like it's more of an accurate simulation of the actual like whatever thing it's describing? You know, are you wanting more like thematic rules? Or are you more like wanting a game system that has you like scratching your head, but then coming around and figuring it out with like more and more time spent thinking about it? So, you know, it just depends. But Kate, I want you to first tell us, because this will be a little bit about listening to you as a gamer and where you're at right now. You'll tell us some of the directions you're thinking of heading, and the rest of us will give you some advice as to whether or not it's a game that you might want to try, or maybe not necessarily like should you try it, but in what order should you try it. So, Kate, where as a gamer do you see yourself? Where did you come from? Where did you go? No.
Like,
sorry.
I see myself playing those in-depth games, like lore games, like your decisions matter, not like a bunch of rules to everything, more like Dungeons and Dragons instead of like bigger games. I don't know any examples, but
so you want to go through your list here?
Yes, let's go through my list.
Okay, so Kate has a list of games here that says, here's the deal. I have two and a half shelves worth of board games. Yeah, I have quite a bit.
No, not shelves. Bookcases.
Bookcases. Okay, yeah.
And it's closer to 3.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, there's the difference.
I originally wanted to do games that I keep bugging Kate to play, but I usually don't ask her to play games too much unless there's something I'm really, really obsessing about.
Well, and right now, you know, her number one game is Cosmic Encounter.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of where we put the measurement, is how close is it to Cosmic Encounter in, you know, the do you have to keep going to the rule book? How fast is each turn order? Is there a likelihood of somebody, you know, going all AP?
And dying.
Yes, the possibility for character death must be high.
Must be very high.
And so she kind of looked over, and I was like, she's like, yeah, these games here I'm curious to try, but I don't know if I want to try them or not, because they may be too long or too much to it. So I figured we could go through it, some of these games she picked out, and we can, just discuss them and see if we either, A, try it, B, run from it, or, and then maybe come up with some other games after listening to these 4 that, maybe, because I know there's a lot of people out there that want to play heavy games, but are kind of like, I don't know. They're kind of big and scary. There's a thick rule book, and we've all been there. Looking at. I know when I first looked at Twilight Imperium 3rd edition, I was like, oh. So, okay, Kate, why don't you?
The first game that's on my list is Chaos in the Old World. Now, Dad has been telling me about this, where like your demons, you're like taking over the world. I'm just like, yes, this is my kind of game. But I've heard it's a heavy game, and I'm really worried about length of turns.
I've played Chaos in the Old World, and I've also played its newer kind of like brother, I would call it, Blood Rage. And I don't really think that your turns that you're taking in Chaos in the Old World are all that like super difficult or complex. I think this one would be a good jumping off point if you're interested in it. I mean, this is like, this is really visceral, and it's got really high asymmetric powers. And I think that's what a lot of people enjoyed Blood Rage for gameplay's sake, but they really disliked that there was no longer any like asymmetric powers. You become fairly asymmetric, but in this one, you start asymmetric, and the whole game, like, you kind of almost have to have played it once or twice to have any idea of what to expect people to do if they're playing to the strengths of their character. But since you like the sound of, like playing as a god, and really what you're doing is corrupting and nasty, it's a really adult theme. It's not one that I would bring to a game night at school. And honestly, like, to me, the theme itself is interesting, but I think that it kind of is a game system that almost gets a little bit lost in its theme, and it also uses a fairly basic dice system, which are totally like, to me, I don't think those are criticisms that would necessarily that you should take into account, Kate. I don't think that those are things that would really upset you like they upset me. But I think, TC, you have some experience with Chaos in the Old World, right?
Oh yes. The biggest hindrance to this game is if you don't have it, it is like way out of print. And since Fantasy Flight lost the license to the Games Workshop games, you're never going to see a reprint of this thing.
Yeah.
And it does have the theme is very wrong. I mean, the game board is like a piece of skin stretched out on hooks. You're playing like Korn, the blood god, right? And you're just massacring other people.
Sounds like my kind of game, bro.
Yeah. But, I like the dice system because you burst on 6s. Once you figure out the like how each faction plays.
Wash it down.
And the fact that there's multiple, you can either get so many victory points to win the game, or you spin the dial to a certain number to win the game. There's 2 ways to win the game. Of course, with some factions, it's easier to do than others. Good luck getting up the victory track with the blood god, but so you want to like just go out and just massacre people with him. But
let me try to sell you this though, Kate. All right, so Blood Rage, you're not like going out and massacring people. I mean, you're going out and winning battles. But you get points for dying. You get points for having your guys go to Valhalla. And there's a god in this game. And the way that, like, in this one, it's more of a drafting game, like Seven Wonders or Sushi Go or Between Two Cities. Okay, drafting games. Here you draft them, but one of them that you can draft, one of the gods that you can have access to is Loki. And you literally will get points for losing. So you will, you'll be like
like Dad's character.
You go around like a disease. You'll be like the parasite that's like, oh yeah, I want to battle there. Yeah, I'd love to battle there. Doesn't look like you're gonna win. No, maybe not. You end up just like the card says, like, you take this from the person that won. Instead of you losing and just losing your dudes, which you do, you can find ways to profit off of losing guys, and you can actually glom off of that person that's winning these battles and really make their economy come to a grinding halt. And then you can try to win a few late game battles. So I find that Loki god of having that sort of trickster in the game is very entertaining, and in a lot of ways at least fulfills some of that sort of like wacky, like unpredictability that you would get from, like one of them is like just a god in the Chaos in the Old World. One of them just wants to like infest, and it kind of like starts really small, but yeah, it's just and it's like like gross. Like it's like I feel like that god is like playing a giant pus-filled sore. Like it is gross. And then one of them is like something about like lust and stuff, and it's like really like not stuff you don't want to have that talk at the table, like so yeah.
What do you think about this one, Carissa? You remember playing it?
Chaos?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. My concern would be turn order. I'm not as concerned with theme, given what my daughter writes in our writing club. But it's a good point you brought up about Blood Rage. That would probably be a good stepping stone towards Chaos in the Old World.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wait for your next one, Kate. Okay.
Next one. Oh, I didn't shut off the phone. Liberty or Death. I was gonna go crazy on this one.
I love that game.
Why are you interested in this one, Kate?
You guys keep constantly talking about it. Like,
so it's osmosis. Okay, I was wondering because I thought like I had Kate pegged as more of like somebody who'd be into like Chaos in the World. I was like, yeah, of course, the crazy thematic, blood bursting and stuff like that. The other one's on here kind of like dominant species being like an animal and getting to evolve and stuff like that. But I was like, Liberty or Death. That's like reading a history book. And then I thought,
I've studied the American Revolution, so gotta do that schoolwork.
Yeah, got some homework for you tonight after you get done doing the homework of playing Liberty or Death.
Yeah. That's where her historian mother actually came in useful with my degrees. Is she's like, I'm studying the Revolutionary War. It's like, okay, here's a book. Look at this game.
Mm-hmm.
These two board game geeks talk about it. If there's the subject of board games, Liberty or Death always comes up, I swear. So I'm just like, I need to try this and see how good it actually is.
I think it would appeal to you because of the taking over the world feeling and the challenge of it. Because you like strategy. You like trying to push your armies and your people kind of to how much you can get them. And I think another thing it has in its favor is the fact that you are sort of working in tandem with another person. So it's not just you by yourself working the board. If you're British, then you're working also with the Indians, the Native Americans. And so you can get some assistance from them if they're willing to help you. They can also turn around and stab you in the back. And I know how much you like that. So
yeah,
that's good.
Pull up the knife.
I think the rule heaviness would bog you down for the first few games unless you were willing to try and play through it.
Rules.
So the other thing that I like too is, I mean, you can get to the point where you think the turn orders are going to be really long, but you're very invested to see what the other players are doing because that's how you build your strategy. And so you have to pay attention. And plus, since it's a coin game, it has a certain way that you can play. So you might think you have a strategy, but there's a card that you could follow or not. And if one player picks one option, then you're stuck in a certain option, which can completely screw your strategy if you're not careful. So all of those elements combined, I think giving it a shot would not, at the short game, I think it would be interesting to see how you played with it, especially since it's a coin. And I
call being the British.
Good girl. That's my girl.
She wants to take over the world. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that she wants to play a coin game. My biggest concerns are the length but we're familiar enough with the rules that we could,
simplify it.
Yeah, tell you what to do. And then plus, also, once you get familiar enough with one of them, that opens up the door to so many other. Ending. I mean, it just opens up. Oh yeah, Joe, Pendragon's coming out, right? Pendragon.
Yeah. Actually,
holy crap.
Trent was really excited for that one before he said that his schedule couldn't work for tonight. That was the last thing that he said. So Trent like from the ether, from out in the abyss is hyping Pendragon as well.
And then the Falling Sky. So yeah, I think if you like it and you like the system and that's something you want to get invested in, once you learn it, you can apply it to a different game, different different scenarios, different.
It's a pretty workable system. There's definitely a lot of folks that are liking the different angles that you can approach it at, because I think reading the Maria is like a war game that had a really interesting rule book comment, and that was that you never understand a two-sided battle until you imagine it with a third side. And it was it kind of made me wonder, I wonder how this works. But just the way that you end up with people sort of invested in different campaigns, I would almost want to call it, throughout the game, and there's this sort of constant players keeping other players in check, and it really does represent the complexities of a conflict. There's very few conflicts that are able to be such black and white sort of conflicts as say the Axis and the Allies type style of game. And even that game, when you look at Churchill, it's able to approach it from so many different angles. And I think that the fact that Coin is more of a multifaceted, it's a three-dimensional game system, as I would call it, because you have more points to connect than just A and B. That's why I think there's so much popularity and so many designs coming out. So what they need to do here's the thing, Kate. If by the time it comes out you still haven't tried a Coin game, I would like to recommend, and I have no experience playing the game. I actually never got a chance to play it at all. I never got any review copy or anything of it. And this would be from Leader Games. Cole Worley designed Root. And it is you ever heard of Redwall, the Redwall series with all the mice and...
Oh, yeah, I tried that.
So it's that sort of a world where all these animals that are the queen is I believe a cat. And anyway, they're all different types of animals that represent different factions that are fighting over control of a forest and stuff. And the Root, there's all sorts of different players you can play as. It adds, it also is kind of similar. I think you've played Vast the Crystal Caverns, right?
The dragon?
Vast!
Yeah, which is kind of similar. I think that's a stepping stone into Coin-like systems where you've got so much asymmetry baked into the actual game system, So if you liked Vast, which it sounds to me like you did, and you've got the British are kind of in a way, the dragon of the game. I would say that this would be a really good one for you to try out, especially since you've got, Kate, I'm just going to say this once now and it'll come out later. The best heavy game for you to play is the one that the people that are around you that are going to make the experience the easiest on you. That's the best heavy game. It isn't necessarily what heavy game, your interest is important. It is. But I will tell you straight up that there is many gamer that has died. Their love and hope for playing a game has died in the middle of a rule book. It is something where for me, I didn't even really start reading rule books until I had been taught several game systems by actual players teaching me the game. And I just didn't have anything to even build that structure on as I read a rule book. Even Dominion's rule book was hard for me when I first started out in the hobby. I've tried to learn that one on my own, and it was confusing. There was a lot of things I didn't realize what they were there for because I just took that rule book at face value. You're going to have two individuals there to help you play Liberty or Death that are going to know that game system.
These two game freaks.
Girl. Ready for number 2?
Number 2, Dominant Species. I think I tried this one once, but I think it was a little too long for me.
I forgot we did. You did that at Uncle Greg. Is that where you?
Yeah, that was a bad experience playing that game.
We had too many players.
Yeah, we weren't invested. to it. But so why do you want to try this one again, Kate?
I mean, it has the theme. I've invested in the theme. I love evolution, and I just flat out love animals, and especially little bugs. And I like to think this is a battle over territory, right? Like, it's fighting, I believe, and it just looks interesting, but I'm really worried about length.
Dominant species is a long game, but I also think that with the size of your family there, with the size of your family that will be playing this game, I tend to think it's best for new players learning it at 3 players, because you end up, you're not just going to get skunked and shoved off the map. That happens at the higher player counts. Yeah, avoid that one. And I would just say in general, heavy games, if you're playing them for the first time, try to play them at a lower player count first. If anybody is trying to get you to play an actually heavy game and it's like 7 players, like for me, Kate, I was at a similar position as you. It's comparable because I had played a lot of heavier games and I was about to try the heaviest game. I was about to try a 6-hour game for the first time. And that to me was a very daunting experience. And I ended up in a situation where I was playing it with, I think, 7 other players. And it just, yeah. And it ended up taking 9.5 hours as opposed to the 6 it was supposed to take. It was an hour and a half of just teaching. And for me, that was such a negative experience. And the unfortunate reality is that started my experience in this game system that's still very popular with a lot of the heavy gamers that I play with. But because of that sort of emotional baggage and with me, I feel like I have a sort of a bunch of turn and run triggers now where it's like, if I see this happen, turn and run. If I see this start to happen, then I should start to tell everybody, hey, can we just, hurry it up? Can we keep going? I feel like I ended up with a lot of those sort of horror, the horror of that experience haunts me for the rest of my life. And I can't unsee that. I can't unexperience it.
With dominant species, I mean, you have to the biggest thing to understand about that game is the difference. You have to understand how dominance works, because it's not necessarily having the most cubes in an area. It's like being able to feed off the most food around it.
It's an area control with 2 different forms of control.
Yeah. And then you also got to, I don't think you would have a problem with the cards. Because, those cards do incredibly swingy things.
You'll love the cards. That'll be what he loves about it.
Yeah. And
the catastrophe, the epicenter of your dad's population.
Yeah.
Because that just totally nukes the tile and everything around it gets reduced to 1. It's called catastrophe for a reason.
It goes up and explodes everywhere.
The artwork is of a giant volcano exploding.
And you have to, another thing to know going into the game is that dominant scores one last time at the end of the game. And if you don't, that could swing. You could be thinking you're doing well and then completely space that this one player is going to score dominance again. It has 8 tiles of dominance and they're just going to crush you when you think you're doing.
Oh, and then Tundra finally has that sort of end game scoring too. Yeah. So it's not worth anything throughout the game, but it's all in the end game.
Yeah.
It's worth a little bit throughout the game, yeah.
And then having a first game, you're here's your little thing, and there's all those options. You got to plan everything out that you want to execute. You just got just got to plan it out. And then if you miscalculate or they could just throw your whole strategy off for the round if you don't plan things well. But I do think the theme would take you in, Kate. The best thing about playing bugs is they can just go everywhere. You can just flood the board with them. Play spiders, they eat anything, right? Birds actually fly everywhere.
Yeah. You will love that part. The way that your animal, you do feel like the special ability makes you that animal, and you start with just it's kind of cosmetic, but the birds eat grubs, right? The birds eat grubs to start the game, or am I thinking of something else?
I'm not sure. Yeah, each animal has a specific, the amphibians eat water. I know that.
Yeah.
What about you, honey? What do you think about giving dominant species a second shot with Kate?
No.
I
don't think it's going to be what you think it's going to be, because I know you really like evolution, and that is a faster paced game. And you are going after each other. It's not over territory, it's over actual creatures, where dominant species is more territorial control. And I've seen you play some of those games in the past, and they don't hold your attention as much. And I think also having to make all of those choices, I think you would get aggravated, overwhelmed. Yeah, definitely. Because I get overwhelmed with that game. It's not my favorite game. And so I would say that might be one to try when you have more heavy games under your belt, or to watch another group play it to get a feel of the gameplay.
Watching other people play,
not the whole game, not the whole game, but just watch a couple turns to see how it goes. Usually in the later part of the game where it's more exciting.
Well, yeah, the earlier part of the game, you tend to just kind of get out, and the board's still small, so you can still like cut people off and hurt them. But yeah, it is in the later part of the game is when most of the points are scored, especially at end game. A lot of people don't realize how many points are really scored in that end game.
Now, the end game can be crazy if you don't see it coming. That's one of the things I like about it.
But I think for now, I'd recommend you stick with Evolution.
Okay. Trust bomb. Last but not least, Dad's gonna love me for this /hate Rex or Dune. Like,
why?
Dad has been talking legends about this game. Like, he's been praising it as if it were a god. And I'm over here just like, it's way too long. And I was wondering on other people's opinions on it, not just Dad's praising.
Well, I just have to teach you the special strategy. You attack Dad until he allies with you. And he has so much experience with the game, then you ride his coattails.
Yeah, the reason I know you like Cosmic Encounter a lot, and it's the same designers, right?
That doesn't mean it's the same game.
It's definitely not the same game, but and then plus since they rethemed Dune into Rex, it's got that space theme on it with aliens and stuff that I think you would enjoy. My biggest concern about you playing it is it can be very unforgiving and very cruel. I mean, this is a game where if you're out, you can be out of the game and still be having to play it by making a bad choice. I mean, you can like just make this big attack, just get decimated, and then spend the rest of the game limping back in and not being very effective. But it has one of my favorite battle systems with that battle dial. And what do you think? You think I'm too passionate about it? I mean, I need the mommy here to temper me.
Passionate.
I don't know. I don't have the experience with it that you have. I think part of it is you're very biased towards it because it's one of your very favorite games.
Top game, yeah.
And I know you would really like her to try it. I don't know. And it's one of those that the turn orders can be long. The game can go long. I do it with. I know you're recommended. You usually won't play it with less than 6 players.
Because everything's balanced with all those other. If taking one of them out, that kind of makes it unbalanced. That you need 6 players to play this.
But that makes the game so much longer. So what I would recommend, if you really want to try it, Kate, is you partner with somebody else, and that way. You get to do all the gameplay and decisions with a mentor helping you along. And if the game is not your cup of tea, you can politely bow out and that person can take your spot. That way you don't feel trapped in it and you don't get as frustrated. That would be my recommendation. Yes. And I hadn't thought of that before, but we started doing that with Liam, where one of us would partner with him to try a game out. And then when he found his feet, we just cut him loose.
Yeah.
But so that might be an idea for you to think about with Rex, since Dad won't play it with less players.
Have you ever tried to play this one or Dune, Joe?
Either of them. So Trent has talked about them before, but for me, it is that time commitment that's kind of kept me, I think, away from it. And also, Kate. For everybody's got a different angle they take at it at playing longer games, and for me, if a game is going to be longer than anything else, I feel like I need to get, I don't know, like I need to be engaged for the entirety of the experience. I have that same sort of like short attention span that you have. And this game system here, like your parents have said, you're talking about a lot of downtime in between turns, but all of this stuff, like to me, I can accept like lots of downtime. I can accept a lot of, like a lot of, I would say, decisions and stuff like that. I would say I can accept a lot of weight and heft and, time, as long as there isn't sort of like elements to the game that just can like swing it all in a weird direction. And this one has elements of swinginess that I think make TC love it. Like
Yes.
the way that one of the races can like pick a winner at the beginning of the game, and if that person wins, they're like, yay, I worked this whole game and I win, and yay, hooray. And that race can be like, oh, yeah, I figured you would. You lose, I win. 4 hours. Guess what? The whole time you couldn't win. If you won, I was going to win no matter what. I picked at the beginning of the game the person who was going to lose if they won.
There is some of that backstabbing that goes on towards the end.
But that's that sort of silliness. If that's what you enjoy, then you're going to get that here from Rex. For me, like that type of thing, I'm like, why did I just spend this long doing it? It's kind of like, I'm okay with that, but I'm like, you know what? If it all came down to this one card flip and this one moment, then why? Why all of that?
I was working to that moment to make it happen.
I feel like it's like the rug being pulled out from under me a little bit.
Well, yeah, with Rex, there is a way that you can all win together, but you can like have this traitor card where you can, the rules specifically say if the alliance wins, you shake your hands and you all win together. But if you can flip the card over and say no, I win by myself. If you meet the objective, whoever has the highest number card on their treachery card wins it. So there's that choice. You're like, and that always is a fun part of the game when you see all these people working well together and working well, and then all of a sudden they go to shake hands because they worked well together. Like, no, and then the knives come out, they just start stabbing each other in the face. And then when that happens, that lingers after the game into other games. Whenever any other game has to, like, these people who worked well together and got screwed over have to like come together in a different game to work together. They're like, I remember what you did in Rex. I don't trust you anymore.
Like Cosmic Encounter.
Yeah. So why don't we, Joe? You have a
my recommendations. I actually have a slew of recommendations because I'm trying to make up for Andy and Trent not being around. Honestly, I feel like it's tough for me to speak about like what Trent would recommend exactly. I really wish that I'd gotten a little bit of information from him because Trent always just keeps me guessing. I feel like what he would recommend, it always feels thoughtful, and I don't want to assume. But thankfully, Andy's not that thoughtful. So
Wow.
No, I love Andy, but he was getting some compliments earlier in the chat, so I had to put him back down where he belongs. The thing is, I think that Andy loves 18xx. 18xx is a game system. Do you understand the concept of like partial ownership? Like imagine, Kate, if like what's one of your favorite games where you get to like build up something, where you get to like take control and build something up?
Take control and build something. I haven't
like
played
a
that
city building, like where you get to build up a city or something, or get to build something all your own.
Keep in mind, I just can't remember the name of it.
Sure. I mean, like, do you guys know? I mean, just any games that you guys like playing as a family that involves like.
Machikoro.
The Machikoro.
Okay. Well, imagine if instead of like Machikoro being about you making choices, Machikoro was about you, first of all, buying stock in a city and then getting to make choices for that city as long as you were the person that ran that city. But then other people could later on get a lot of money and then buy stock and steal that city from you. And now they're the owner of the city and they're the ones that are able to make choices. But the good news is you still get to benefit because you still have like that partial ownership in the city, right? Like this is not your city. This is a city that you own stock in, and as long as you own enough stock to be the CEO, you get to make decisions, but that can very easily go away. So Andy loves those types of games. I know that your dad enjoys 1846 because we just talked about it last Tuesday, this a couple days ago. So I would say that would be, if you're going to jump all the way into the 18xx genre, that's like your starting point. But understand that you're going to be, like playing out a largely what looks like a game system. Like on the board, it does not look pretty at all, right? And the game system itself, like the different train companies, aside from where they start in a few abilities, you're going to largely be trying to just make the most money. So understand that going into it.
You keep saying like stock markets and money, and I'm not really finding much interest in that. Like, where's the fighting? Where's the bloodshed? Where's the death? Where's the
Oh, believe me, it is there. It is there. A hostile takeover of a company, like if I can take over what you used to run and now it's my company, like, oh man, that can hurt a lot more than just dying. Like, death is merciful. Here, you have to sit there and watch me make all the money in the world, and I'm going to be like, hey, thanks so much for getting me this startup, This is really working out for me. So here's what's cool about it, though, Kate, is that things become more complex than just, I am this guy, you kill this guy, you kill me. It becomes, I'm kind of invested in that, and I'm kind of invested in that. So what do I actually do? It makes difficult decisions. Okay? And if you're the type of person who's like, I want to be sitting there like, oh no, what do? I got a tough decision to make, because if I do this, then I'm hurting myself in this way. If I do this, I'm hurting myself in this way because I own stock in all these different companies. Like that's the type of thing that I'm talking about. Like, where it's like, oh my gosh, where do I go from here, considering that he owns this? So I know that since he owns this, I want him to not see me as a threat, right? Like I don't want TC buying up this company, because that company can really hurt me. However, if I can get him on my side, then I can really like get away with murder here. And by that I mean making lots and lots of money, not any actual death. Sorry. We're not all bloodthirsty little garden gnomes.
I think the thing you might enjoy about this one, if you got into it, is that, let's just say it's me, you, and Mom playing, and Mommy is making a murdering. She's making money all over the place. Well, one of a real option in this game is that by stocking her company, so whenever she makes money, you're making money too. Ooh. Right? So you could like piggyback, money. Or you can convince other people to buy, like, oh look, I'm doing really good with my company. See, you guys should buy stock in it, and then just trash it and make everyone go into debt. And you're like, ha ha ha! So you grab the money and run.
See ya.
Right? There are moments like that. It's very mathy though. Very math.
Math belongs in math class.
Let me add on a couple of different ones here to hopefully maybe take you in that direction, so you can see like how these decisions can become really interesting. And what becomes hilarious is that you are getting to do things that can be negative to people, but usually it's because they set themselves up so that you don't have any stake in actually wanting them, their company to do well. So we've actually been talking here in the chat. And Jerry has some really interesting comments. He really loves Chicago Express, but basically, like what these games do is instead of you just getting to sort of manipulate the stock market with it being wide open, you just buy stock in whatever company you want. The only limitation is how much money you actually have. In these games, you're actually limited as to how much stock is in that company, and different companies have different amounts of stock, and the companies will automatically have certain payouts that you hit during the game. And it's just, in general, it's a lot easier to wrap your head around, but you're still getting to like make a lot of decisions that impact other players that aren't necessarily going to be like obvious right from the start, right? Like if I play a card in Munchkin that says lose a level on you, that just straight up, that's just like, let's think about it here. Let's call a spade a spade. It's like playing sorry. Sorry. But if I can find a way to sort of like undercut your company or cut you off on the map, it can hurt just as bad. You ever played Ticket to Ride, Kate?
I think
you know what it feels like?
Yeah.
You know that little choke point between Seattle and Portland? That little is it Seattle and Vancouver? I think it's Seattle and Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
The one that's like one train long, and when somebody goes there, usually at least one other person at the table is like, "Oh, my game is over." Or the Atlanta, what is it? Atlanta to Nashville, I think, is a single one that, like, you know, getting around that is, it's a nightmare. That's the type of things you can kind of work out here. But instead of it just being like, you know, I'm the blue trains on the board. You are part invested in the blue train, part invested in the yellow train. But you know what? That green train can, pardon my French, go to hell. And you're going to make sure that it does, because you have no stake in green train. And you know who has stake in green train? TC has stake in green train. And we know what we want.
Green train as fast as possible.
Yes, green train is going down the tubes. So I have a couple of recommendations. One of them is called Mini Rails. And what this game does is it makes it so that your companies are going to be making, like, building track, but instead of it being track where you have to, like, decide the direction it goes, and that takes a lot longer, you just put down a marker in a hex. And that marker in the hex just tells you that you are built to that hex, and you can go any direction you want from there.
Ooh.
Okay, so it just makes it go a lot quicker, right? You can go any direction you want. Okay, so Mini Rails is really cool because you never have to work out math with the stock. All that happens is every time that your stock goes up, you have these little markers that are the same ones that get built as rails on your board, and every time that goes up, you're just supposed to move it up one space. And at the end of the game, it'll be like +5 or -5, right? You're never doing any rough math. The choices are all very much like right there in front of you. It's a really nice, easy game to get you started, but you still are partially owning companies. Okay?
What's the one?
And if you want flavor and you want to, and this maybe I'll win you over with this one. Imagine if your dad owned a railway company and you bought a single stock in that railway company, and then you decided you don't think he's doing that great of a job, that you've got some nice hotels you'd like him to build to. Well, you can call on your good old friend, the mafioso, to hold a gun up to your dad's head, make him an offer he can't refuse, and then you get to control that for the round. You can take over his company for a round, and now all those beautiful plans that he had, he's going to make a really odd, long trip going way out of the way to build on this hotel out in the middle of nowhere that belongs to guess who? Yes. You know, I know that you had to go so far through the barren countryside to get here, but ain't it nice? It's a great view. The scenic route, we call it. So the game that I'm talking about is actually a tiny little game that's got very little publicity. It's called Iberian Rails, but you get to select roles. One of them's the mafioso. The other one is like there's one that's the inspector. One of them builds hotels. The inspector like makes you can make back alley deals. You make back alley deals, but the inspector takes half for himself. You can make back alley deals. It's got so many different interesting pieces. I was talking about it in the chat. It's where I recommend you to go to try out that thing, because you know what? There's a reason, Kate, that your mom and dad are talking so much about Liberty or Death. There's a reason. There's a reason that other folks out there are talking about their games too. You know, there's something in there to appreciate. Do you have the gene for appreciating stocks in games? Well, maybe that's something that's yet to find out, right? It certainly doesn't sound interesting, but I will tell you right now, I was in your shoes once, and it didn't sound interesting to me either. I was like, stocks? Ew, no, I don't like the actual stock market. That sounds like something that people do when they go to work, right? But at the same time, you know, Liberty or Death can sound like school to the uninitiated. Stock markets can be really fun, as long as it's not my actual money.
I know when we got 1846, Carissa, you were like, what war happened in 1846? Because it's a GMT game.
I had no idea what the 18XX games were. TC kept talking about them. And it's like, yeah, they're by GMT, and it's 18XX. And then he got this one. I was like, what war was going on in 1846? He's like, no, look at the board. It's like, that's not a war game. That is stocks on it. But I enjoyed it.
Any other games you want to recommend to Kate?
You know what? I would say I was trying to kind of recommend you. That was kind of my recommendation from Andy, right? And I know that kind of dovetailed into like 3 different recommendations. So like pick your level of complexity here, right? Just jump right in with 1846. Try the absolute lightest, simplest version of mini rails that can kind of give you an idea of at least what's under the hood, or go to what is my favorite entry, at least at this point, where you get, I think, all of the sort of backstabbery and shenanigans of an 18xx game, but with the shorter play time and my favorite. Like, I love the roll selection, and Iberian Rails is I guess for me that's kind of the one that I'm just gushing over. So consider it what you will. For me, from my perspective though, Kate, like when I look at heavy games, if you're looking at it to find what has the most like interesting style of decisions and gameplay, I would recommend that you seek out one where I think you should look for something that's kind of like got some pretty decent levels of interaction, but not something that's on a level that will be really necessarily insurmountable in terms of like difficulty. And I would recommend that you try Dungeon Pets, because it's one that I find people really like. So many guys that I know get their wives to play this game, which is a good indication that it's like, it's not like beyond regular people. But what do you think about the idea of being somebody who's raising monsters, but you raise them from when they're tiny little babies into when they're grown up like monsters? Have you ever tried Dungeon Pets?
I haven't heard of it.
Okay, so what you are is you're an imp that owns a pet shop. And you buy pets, but if you don't buy a pet and nobody wanted a pet, it gets removed from the market, and then meat comes up in the meat market. No connection, though. No connection. It's not related.
Oh, God.
It's just coincidental, purely coincidental.
Pure coincidence.
Uh-huh. There's nuggets like this all over the game. So, but every pet is like, it's not just... Like, every pet seems to have a personality because you have to care for it. That's your job. Like, you are caring for it. You are not like...
So they can grow up into big monsters and destroy the world?
Yes. And then once you get done with this game, you can go and make them into big monsters and destroy the world. And this game that you can destroy the world in is called Dungeon Lords, right? But did you ever stop to think, Kate, though, that being a Dungeon Lord is actually a lot more of an honest job than you would think? Like, think about it, You've just got this dungeon. You're not messing with anybody, and these adventurers want to come mess it up. What gives? What gives? You even have to pay taxes in that game because the Ministry of Dungeons is awful. There's all kinds of bureaucracy. Anyway, let's go back to Dungeon Pets, right? Because this is the one that is what I'm recommending is a good entry point. All right, it's hilarious. It's got all the frills, and you get to build cages and add things to make those cages nicer. And then you have to send your imps. Some of your imps have to go send out to the market to buy more pets and carry more cages back. Other ones are going to be staying back to play with the pets. But the way that the pets behave is just so different than anything I've ever seen. You have a hand of need cards, and you're going to draw new need cards every round. But like, let's say that you've got a pet that, let's say that you've got a snake kitty. Snake kitty. Oh yeah, it's cute. But what does Snake Kitty want? Snake Kitty wants food. And does Snake Kitty eat vegetables? No, Snake Kitty doesn't eat vegetables. Snake Kitty eats meat. So you have to have meat. What else does Snake Kitty like? Snake Kitty wants to play. Oh, isn't that adorable?
Aww.
So to play, you've got to have an imp that can play with Snake Kitty. And the imp, fortunately, can not only entertain Snake Kitty, the imp can also entertain another monster that's next to you. Or you could build a slide in Snake Kitty's cage, and that entertains Snake Kitty without an imp. Or Snake Kitty's gonna get sad.
Aww.
And Snake Kitty gets this little black cube, and I have never played with any cube in any game that has made me feel such a palpable sense of immediate depression. Like whenever I have to put one of those cubes out, I feel like, I failed you, Snake Kitty. And then if you ever have to do it again, and Snake Kitty already has one sadness cube, and you go to add another sadness cube, Snake Kitty goes away forever.
No, Snake Kitty!
Mm-hmm. And you know other things other things that can make Snake Kitty sad are if Snake Kitty has poop in Snake Kitty's cage. That's right, Snake Kitty poops. Guess what color these cubes are?
I wonder.
Uh-huh. It's not unicorn poop. They're brown cubes. They're brown poop. Just like poop is brown, Snake Kitty poops brown too, even though he's cute. Or she's cute, whatever you want to be.
Adorable.
Snake Kitty is adorable. But guess what? If Snake Kitty ever has poop in Snake Kitty's cage and you need to add more poop and there's more than 2 poop cubes, Snake Kitty gets sad. Actually, no. Snake Kitty first needs to get a sickness card. And if Snake Kitty gets sad and is sick, or if Snake Kitty has poop in his cage and gets a sickness card, then Snake Kitty becomes depressed. Because guess what? You suck. So all of these beautiful things are things that are going to make you invest in the game. And it's going to make you wondering, like, how am I going to continue to care for Snake Kitty? As Snake Kitty grows, Snake Kitty makes me draw more need cards. And I have less, imps to be able to go to the market because I have to spend more time caring for Snake Kitty. So then eventually you go take Snake Kitty to a pet show. And the pet shows are a little bit complex in how they work out. But let's just say some of the judges have weird things. They want to see poop. Some of them want poop. Yeah, that's right. Some of these judges are weird. But you know what? The people that are going to come and buy Snake Kitty from you, eventually, after your pet show and you show off Snake Kitty, the people that are going to buy Snake Kitty from you are the Dungeon Lords that you get to play as when you play Dungeon Lords. So yeah, one of the Dungeon Lords looks like a farmer, and that farmer wants to see all kinds of poop. He wants fertilizer for his fields, right? Nothing to do with the weird collection he keeps.
Okay.
I completely forgot about that because in the Dungeon Lord game, you're actually playing the Lord and trying to kill the people.
Snake Kitty's gonna take over the world.
Yeah, and the dungeon, God, we remember talking about wanting to try Dungeon Pets, but it completely fell off the radar.
Yeah, no, I remember that. As soon as Joe mentioned it, I was like, oh yeah.
Oh, we're bad parents. We forgot all about Dungeon Pets. That's actually right up your alley.
Dungeon Pets.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe we could invest you in what's the Galaxy Trucker after that. Another
game by the same designer. Yeah. I mean, in that one you're a trucker trying to build. It has a timed element. So you're building it really fast. You're trying to build a ship out of sewer pipes that are laying around and so they're not actually made to fly, but you've got to do it because the company needs you to do this and if you end up dying in orbit, yeah, you can actually literally blow up. Your ship just blows up and you're just gone. That's it. Yeah, poof.
One random asteroid at the right nexus point of your ship and you're just done.
Yep.
How about you, Chris? Any heavier game you would recommend trying with your own?
I was just trying to think about that, and I'm not sure I'd call it a heavy game, but the Underground Railroad.
Ooh, yes.
The Underground Railroad. Yeah.
There's one that would be good. I recommend, if you want a game that can have somebody helping you out a lot, that game, is one where it's cooperative so people can help you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you like the idea of cooperative games?
They're okay. I mean, I'd rather just stab everybody in the back. But for games.
She likes the cooperative games that have the betrayal element.
Yes. Okay.
Winner comes to mind.
Yeah.
The Thing.
Well, then Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, yeah.
If you like the, I actually got a chance to play The Thing, TC.
What'd you think?
I had a problem with it.
Of course you did.
My main problem was that in the late game, you're forced to send people that you know are bad onto a mission, and they can play these sabotage cards that mess you all up. It seemed to me hopeless, totally hopeless. There's no way that the good guys could really win because, even as you progress through the games, you're still having to send, depending on the random mission, people that you know are bad onto the mission with you.
That by tying them to a chair.
That's true, but then you're just down a person, and you have to. But I mean, even then, some of them require you to have 4 people. Now you're just down a person.
Yeah. And
especially if you draw a card that requires you to have 4 people, and you need to have 4 cards there. There's just no way for you to get an extra 4th one card. It just seemed to me there were situations in which the fact that there was a betrayer just made the game literally impossible. It's already hard enough. And in a way, it felt a little bit like Dead of Winter could that way. But I don't know. To me, it had some interesting elements that I did enjoy. But on the whole, I think I could only play that game really once after having that sort of experience. I just think that like if I get dealt the good guy, I'll just flip it over at the beginning and be like, okay, I lose. Let's deal out cards again. I want to be the bad guy. I want to have fun. I want to screw everybody over. So, but you should try BSG. Battlestar Galactica is a lot like longer and heavier, but it's that same built on the same engine, and it takes out some of the like little concessions that the thing did to make it shorter. So Battlestar Galactica is one that I think your dad also likes too.
I love it.
Oh, yeah.
We all like that game quite a bit.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
And I think we have it broken down to the
base game.
because we have all the expansions.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah.
I've heard it can get pretty unwieldy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Unwieldy, putting it mildly.
Yeah. You have to kind of pick it. It's kind of like Arkham Horror. You have to pick and choose what expansion you want to play with. Because if you just throw them all in there, it's just too clunky, too much. You're just overwhelmed, and you die.
Yeah. So Carter mentioned a couple of games here I'd like to talk about, if that's cool. And these might interest you as well, Kate. They might give you an idea of where we're at here, heavy games wise. So Carter mentioned Spirit Island and Mechs vs. Minions. Now, Mechs vs. Minions, I would like to say, is a heavy game in the physical sense. That's a heavy box. It's tough to lift. But I would easily play that with any new player. I think that the game filters it down. I think that the game gives you easy scenarios that are easy to teach people. I would not hesitate to try playing that with anybody. I don't consider it really much of a heavy game. To me, a heavy game seems to be like one that you really have to sort of, I want to say almost like prepare yourself for in a way. And that's not necessarily one that I would call Mechs vs. Minions. Have you ever played that, Family Reid?
No. I know it's. I've seen it. It's a gorgeous game. It's for the only game I've ever seen that gave me that much for that much content for that little money is Gloomhaven. But it's a cooperative game where you like program movement and you. I think you'd like it, Kate. I mean, it's just. It's the price. I just never.
I haven't even heard of it.
It's all right. You don't need to have an excuse. It's coming out again sometime. You know. And it is, what's cool about it is that they have several different sorts of scenarios that explore, that sort of like get you deeper into the system and give you more choices as it goes on. It's not really a legacy element to it, but it is definitely a campaign-based game. And you're going to be unlocking new abilities as it comes, as the game continues to progress, and the scenarios will get more and more sort of interesting and complex. I think that it's a really great place to start anywhere in the gaming hobby. If somebody's interested in video games and they like League of Legends, it's a great place to start them out because it kind of gives you an idea. Like a lot of times in the game involves programming, right? It involves like you program a certain line of commands and then you just execute it. But then if you take damage, the way that the game takes damage is that you sometimes will have to it'll be like you have a haywire control slot. And so instead of you getting to do what you have programmed, you'll roll a die and you'll have to put an automatic left turn on this slot. And so now instead of doing this amazing flame spitter and killing all these minions in front of you, you now turn to the left uncontrollably. And you'll end up losing control of your ship or of your mech as the game goes on. And it's just really hilarious to see that unfold. And it's not necessarily one that players are having to make very, very difficult decisions. The game really filters things down really well, but it is still really cool. There's a lot of things that happen in the game that, like a lot of things that happen where it's not necessarily you having to make a decision necessarily about it specifically. And it's cool to see that all play out. So I think it can definitely seem heavier that way. Next up, Spirit Island is a heavy game, a very heavy game. It is a game that is heavy, and it is one that, even though it's cooperative, is one that is, I would consider for people that are like me, where when I play a cooperative game, like when you mentioned Freedom the Underground Railroad, Carissa, I really like that game. But one of my main frustrations with cooperative games is when one player sort of tells everybody what to do, quarterbacking or alpha gaming. And with Freedom the Underground Railroad, I find that it's one that generally you can look and be like, okay, hold on, we need to get a certain amount of money. And really, it's an easy game to play solo because there isn't really all that much information that players are deciding on their own. Kind of similar to Pandemic, you kind of play with your hands face up and whatnot. Spirit Island, though, is going to be too difficult. There's just too many decisions for you to make, too much stuff going on for you to really have one player tell you how to play. And so if you like playing cooperative games and you want to play something that's really heavy, try Spirit Island. Now, here's my sell to you, Kate, because I'm getting an idea of what you like, right? So you know, a lot of games are about being these like settlers, right? Like, have you ever played Catan? Settlers of Catan?
Yeah, we were.
So if you're playing as a settler, every game seems to have you like settling a nation or something like that. Like you're the people that are embarking on a journey and colonizing a land. Well, what about the land? What if the land doesn't want you to colonize it? And what if you happened upon Spirit Island where there are spirits? They're not gods, they're spirits, but they are living peacefully coexisting with a native indigenous people, and your presence on the island is ruining the island for them. And they all have their own specific ways to go about destroying you and sending you back to whence you came. So it is just an absolutely amazing game where, like, as you play as, like, one of the powers is the ocean. Usually the spirits are not allowed to do anything referring to the ocean. The ocean is kind of untouchable. But the difference is if you play as the ocean's hungry grasp, which the game is full of amazing lines like that, like Ocean's Hungry Grasp. That's the name of a player you can be. You can be not the ocean, you are Ocean's Hungry Grasp. And you actually start in the ocean. And every time that you run out of powers to play, you have to pick all your powers up. And when you do that, you're forced to sort of come back out to the ocean. Like imagine it like the tide. You know how the tide comes in, the tide comes out? At least I hear it does. Here in Iowa, we don't have oceans like you guys do. But the tide comes in, the tide comes out. That's one of the like 12 different powers you can be. You can be somebody who strikes lightning, and there, because of the striking lightning, you can act super fast. You can be a fire that spreads, and you can be nightmares and just give nightmares to people and cause them to fear you and just end the game because they're so feared they run away.
I want to be nightmares, man.
Yes. There's two different ways you can play with nightmares. One of them can't even actually hurt people. He can only give nightmares. But giving nightmares causes these amazing, powerful effects. When the people get afraid, they can, they start like losing themselves. Yes. One of the cards in the game that you can acquire is called like sowing the seeds of discord, or like breaking the bonds of friendship of men, something like that. Like you can literally play a card where you break the bonds of friendship of men, which causes like them to start attacking each other. So I mean, there's just all kinds of ways that the humans themselves behave in a way that's predictable and strategic. So you can come at it from that strategic element that your mom says that you like, but then also you've got just this coolest. The way that I put it is the theme of this game gives me the feels.
Spirit Island. Yeah, we have to try that one. Is that still really hard to get, or
no? You can now get it at Game Surplus. At least you could. At one time, we ran an awesome special, and I think that was on an episode you weren't there for, where you could get $10 off of Spirit Island in addition to it being on a podcast pick, which it is one of the most confident podcast picks we have on there right now. I have heard nothing but people loving Spirit Island, and then there's Andy who likes it. But you know what that means by now. If he says he likes it and it's not 18xx, something is wrong with him, or it's a really, really, really great game.
Well, this sounds like a great segue into hype games, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, why don't you guys take the floor? What you guys are going to be talking about?
Okay, well, I'm going to try to sell my family on this one. This is it.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure. I didn't know if they all knew.
Okay, here we go.
To resist.
Okay. As you know, Kate did give Legend of the Five Rings a try, right? You did like playing Clan Unicorn. However, you don't have a big investment in constructing your cards, just like playing. My wife liked the theme of Legend of the Five Rings. She does not like constructible deck games at all. I mean, that's like, I think there was some kind of past trauma.
I'm just not good at it.
Okay.
And I have no vested interest to become better at them. So that's kind of where I think magic killed me.
Yeah, I think you
got magic. Well, I can feel that. I definitely feel that from your perspective, Carissa. It's so much work. Mm-hmm. Like it is insurmountable the amount of effort I need to put into it.
That and the cost involved. I'm There's other things I'd rather spend my money on than deck after deck after card after card.
Yeah, I can't fault you there.
But Fansplit has released a board game based on the Legend of the Five Rings universe called Battle for Rokugan. And my selling point for this one, guys, is it plays in less than an hour. You can play up to 6 people. It's area control.
Turn time.
It looks light, and it's $40. It's not very expensive. And we can play it, and you got your fighting and stuff. I'm very excited to try this out. I mean, you still get to play your unicorns. I can play the scorpion. We don't have to build anything. We can just open up the game and fight. And it's designed by Tom Jolly, who did Wiz War. And I know how much me and you liked Wiz War, Carissa.
That was fun.
That was really fun. So I am really excited. I'm hoping I can. This is like one of my Christmas presents I want. So maybe soon.
We'll see. Mom?
I'm curious.
Yeah, but would you guys be interested in trying this one?
Yeah, I'd play it.
Yay!
Hey! Yeah, I put in our chat here. Please.
Another thing I just want to briefly mention is that we got the newest Arkham Horror Pack. And Carissa's really excited to play this because the last scenario we played, we really messed up Arkham Asylum.
Oh my God!
It wasn't even close. It was epic.
The straight jackets.
I was like, the whole game was just straight jacket.
He's like 3 or 4. He pulled straight jackets, and then he's trapped. He's got to get out of them. And then at the end, as we're leaving the scenario, it's like, so you climbed the fence using a straight jacket. Was like, we've got 4.
What?
Oh God, it was fun.
Yeah, you were actually. She was reading the end resolution of the last one. She couldn't read it. She was laughing so hard.
Oh, it was bad.
And now we can't say a word because if we say the word,
there's a god or a spirit. Yeah, we can't say his name now.
Because we'll take a horror if we say it during the game or setup or anything.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't even say his name anymore. It's the Arkham Horror, he who cannot be named.
Yeah, it's like
I've started calling it him.
Him.
For me, the Arkham Horror, he who cannot be named, would just be TC.
So, like I said before in the long view, this is a game that the more we play it, the more we're enjoying it. The Arkham Horror card game, and yeah, we have it all set up, ready to go. I'm very excited.
What's his name?
Any game you're excited to play? Is it a game?
The game I might try, seeing how passionate you guys are and all your straight jackets. I might try.
So, a game you want to play with the hype? You want to play? Like Dungeon Fest?
That's definitely on my playlist now. Though I have to talk about Star Trek Ascendancy a little bit.
Oh, really?
I need your guys' opinion on whether or not to play, because just the downtime and just...
You went to play the board.
Yes, I want to play the board, but you can't.
Well, yeah, you can just gotta get assimilated by them.
Yeah, my feeling is if we play Star Trek Ascendancy with the board, Kate's just gonna throw herself right in front of him, going, "Take me,
Yeah.
Take
so she can take them over." Yeah, I think you should try it.
I think we should try it. We're gonna. The thing that's got me excited about the board expansion, honestly, is that it looks like when you play Ascendancy, you're fighting each other for Ascendancy to win. You know, it's a very confrontational game. The board looks like it's an NPC that comes out that you all have to team up to fight together. So it looks like it's going to add a cooperative element to the game.
You two are going to team up together to fight the board.
So that alone looks like it's going to change the game up fairly significantly, and I'm pretty excited to give it a shot. There's our hype, the Reid Family hype. Woo!
Yeah, got a couple snuck in there. So, yeah, very, very interested in hearing more about that as you continue to get that game played. So, hype-wise, I've got to take a look. I got to remember, man. All right, so for me, I have a story, I guess. I'm very excited that I now have organization to finally start playing one of my favorite games again, and that is Dominion.
Yeah!
What's that?
Dominion.
I now have Dominion Organization, and I've spent almost as much on Dominion Organization as I did on Dominion. But I have all of the expansions in one spot, and gosh, I hope the hardware for this wooden case that I bought from Broken Token holds up. man, I don't think it was ever meant to hold that many expansions. I seriously think that it feels to me like it's one of those things where don't make any quick or sudden movements. Otherwise, you'll end up being that person in the airport who like wrenches his luggage off of the thing and then like ends up like only really wrenching the handle of the luggage while the luggage continues on the trolley or whatever, the carousel. So, but I'm really excited to play more of Dominion Nocturne. I played it a little bit when it was still in playtesting because one of the guys in our local group here is actually like has been playing Dominion online a lot, even back before it had its own like official variant or official place, back when it was like isotropic and it wasn't, like necessarily Dominion official. So he gets involved a lot more. Like he's one of the developers listed or one of the playtesters listed in the book, and there's only like 17 of them. I was not super impressed by some of the elements in Nocturne. Like there's like a random deck of cards that when you get a boon, you just kind of like flip the card and see what you get. But there is one thing that I really do like about Nocturne. You know how you start out with the 7 coins, just 7 coppers in your deck?
Mm-hmm.
And if you played with Dark Ages, you could play with the hovel, with the shelters that you could start with. So that way you start with like these unique cards.
Yeah. I've had
Okay, I love those cards, right? Well, Nocturne finally does with the coppers what the other one did with shelters. Whenever you play with a specific card, like if you play with the puka, which is apparently some sort of a mythical being, mm-hmm. I have no idea what it is, but that makes you also take like another card into your deck, and you replace one of your starting coppers with it. Like one of them is a goat for these, and every time you play it, you get to eat a card from your deck. Like eat a card from your hand whenever you play the goat. The goat is eating your coppers and stuff. And there's several other ones like that. One of them is like a cursed mirror that if you trash it, you get to take a ghost from the ghost pile, and the ghost is like a pretty darn powerful card. So it's just these treasure things is what I'm really finding myself interested in and thrilled by. Not so much like the boons and the hexes, because there's an element of unpredictability to it that that is the reason I enjoy Dominion, is because it does have so much of like all of the decks, all of the cards are available all of the time, and it's really kind of a puzzle to solve. Whereas with these boons and hexes, it's like you flip a card and it's like, oh, you get to draw an extra card. Oh, you get to take like this hex makes you discard down to 3. Oh, you didn't care? Well, that's fine. Well, this hex makes you take a curse. Yeah, that's horrible. Never, ever, never do that. No. Taking a curse is way worse than like anything you can make me do. So I don't feel like they're necessarily all balanced. But, anyway, boons and hexes are an interesting element, but I'm much more excited about the fact that I'm going to be able to play Dominion, be able to carry it around with me without bringing around 11 boxes.
Yeah.
And thanks to my wife for that Christmas present. She really knows me well.
I still have a real soft spot for Dominion. That was pretty much my gateway game into modern board gaming. And anytime I get a chance to play Dominion, I'll take. I really like that game a lot. I was like, oh wait, there's a card game that you don't have to construct ahead of time. It's like the anti-magic game, right? So I was enamored with it, and I still am to a large extent.
Ironically, we don't own Dominion.
We have a neighbor
who owns it. And
that's the best way to do it.
The expansions. Here you go. Let's play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, like, I actually didn't buy Dominion for the longest time because I always found like there was somebody in the group that owned it. Like Jonathan in our local group owned it, and he always had his copy at the game store. But like, as I started to, I feel like Dominion is something that just gets inside your skin and just grows there, and it just it never leaves. Really, like nobody ever is like done with Dominion. I feel like it's just especially with how relevant they've made it with the new landmarks and the new events and all this stuff. Like the game has just got so cool, and it just continues to get better. So absolutely love it, and that is my hype. So
all right,
nice.
Thanks everybody to joining us. It was awesome to hear from Carmen, to hear from Carter, to hear from Jerry. Which, by the way, Jerry, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods up in Wisconsin. We're headed actually to southwestern Wisconsin. So anyway, hopefully one of these days, maybe we'll find ourselves in the same neck of the woods and be able to actually play a game sometime. But unfortunately, I'm going around there right around Christmas time, so it's probably a tough time for everybody. So anyway, hopefully Wisconsinites will welcome me at least. And it's especially been a treat to have the family Reid on this episode to talk about your burgeoning love of board games.
Their personal love of board games.
Yes,
and you're long.
and you're sort of like trying to filter through all of the wondrous things that people are saying, and all of this like amazing. Here's what I love. You should love it too, and try to find your identity.
Cough, Rex. Cough.
Yeah. Well, I hope that some of those suggestions that you heard from us and from our guys here in the chat were helpful, Kate. And I just wish you well in this start of an amazing journey down the rabbit hole.
Uh-oh.
Well, thank you, Joe, for letting us come on, and it's always a treat.
Night, everybody.
Night.
This has been an episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. I'm the host, Joe Sallin. I've been joined by 3 wonderful guests. First, TC.
Hey.
And Carissa.
Hello.
And the lady who's getting into board games, Kate.
Yo.
Catch us next week, or maybe the week after that, because next week I think it's going to be tough for us to record, and I don't think we're going to be able to make it happen. But I hope you have a great holiday of gaming, and catch us after that holiday on the next Good, the Bored, and the Ugly.